5 more ways to end overwhelm and to create joy and hope in your heart again as a creative. So that's this week's topic. It's part 2 of a 4-parter, all with very different exercises that I'm going to invite you to try, all about getting your creative impulses back out there and also really sitting comfortably in your own skin again and making the work. Obviously, when you have no hope or you're worried about bills or you can't see when you're next getting on stage, it is really hard to keep dreaming as a creative. And the arts, particularly with, the pubs are shut and you can't do festivals and the theatres are shut, the galleries are kind of open. Suddenly the logistics of making art are more difficult than ever, and we're all trying to find ways around that. But this is not about woe is us, let's complain. These are 5 practical exercises, very different from last week's, where I'm going to suggest things you can try. Try one of them, try all of them. I do suggest you try each one for at least a week, ideally 21 days. Some of you might go, I've tried that once, I'm never needing to do that again, and it was ridiculous, but at least you had fun, right? So when you have hope in your heart, you end up having more grit, more perseverance, more persistence, more ability to go, oh, this is a nightmare obstacle, but somehow fighting through it. And having that kind of hope and belief in your creative dream or your particular creative project can often be the real difference between finishing it and not finishing it, putting it in a drawer forever versus battling to the very end. So I am Marisha Trembetska. Here we go at my 5 more ways. So idea number 6, create a cheerleading group. Now, when we think about cheerleaders, I always think of some brilliant American high school rom-com thing, right? And there's always like incredibly beautiful looking cheerleaders. Inevitably, the kind of main protagonist of the story is never the kind of, oh my God, she's so gorgeous, it kind of hurts. But no, and the cheerleaders are often, I feel, maligned unnecessarily, because what do? They can dance, they're choreographed, they've got rhythm. They often can do splits, and they're there to cheer the team on, whatever the team is. And I know from watching loads of American films that the head cheerleader's supposed to date the head footballer or quarterback or whatever they're called, right? But I don't live in America, though I certainly didn't used to study out there, etc. But can you imagine every time you getting up to do your show, your play, your book reading, your writing, when you get up early in the morning to get writing done before the rest of the day kicks in? Can you imagine if there was an entire crew of cheerleaders, all in fabulous costumes and I think really bad wigs, and just looking just fabulous and all wearing far too ridiculous clothing and going, whatever, I don't know what your name is, whoever you are listening, but spelling out your name letters in giant words and maybe tossing fire batons and God knows. Can you imagine how you'd be like, oh, I'm so doing my work today if that happened? It's kind of hard to actually manifest that. I'm sure you could probably just hire some people to come outside your house and go, you are fabulous if you wanted it to. But let's be a little bit more radical. I want you to create your own cheerleading group for yourself. I need you to pick, if you're going to do this, one other person or maybe 2. Don't have loads because it's going to get unwieldy and difficult. So I do this as like me on a one-on-one, but I do think 2 can work. And ideally, it'd be far better if they're in different work fields than you, because you don't want any kind of weird competitiveness getting in. This is not about that. Or if you're both actors or both writers, maybe you're both doing very, very different kind of work. And agree to either physically meet or on the phone or whatever once a week. And then you each have 15 minutes. The first 5 minutes, you're going to say to your cheerleader what you achieved in that last week since you've seen them. 5 minutes about what you're going to achieve in the next week, and which you're going to report back on. And also, I'm going to allow 5 minutes to talk about what you're struggling with and whether that's a mindset issue or just, I felt it very useful to have a sounding board as my cheerleader. To go, oh my God, the tech on DJ Singing Psychic is killing me, and I've got more wires, and right. So, and he just smiles and laughs and listens. And then it's a turn for the other other person and you get to be their cheerleader, which means you're going to listen, you're going to support them, you're not going to interrupt. Sure, you've got sensible suggestions and you've got knowledge, because sometimes working with people in different fields, we all come with our own set of skills, and it can be really useful to have insight from other ways. And, we all have brains that work differently. It's part of the joy of humans. So really support each other in that. And the thing is, if you're going to meet or talk once a week, then, and it might be that you say, okay, well, I'm promising by this time next week, I'm going to choose to move this project from here to here. If you want to then text each other through the week and you say, oh, I got that little bit done, that's completely fine. But having a formal, right, let's see how we did last week, how we're going to go forward this week, it's so helpful. Now, if you want to actually dress up as a cheerleader when you do this, I say, yeah, go for it. Whatever your sexuality or gender, I feel full-on drag cheerleader. I feel like doing a drag cheerleader. I think go for it. And wave batons, or get some of those pom-poms and wave them, because this is about, you're doing brilliantly, you're moving your art and your creativity forward. And enjoy it. But so don't make it too big a thing, if that makes any sense. So if you have massive groups, I used to have a meet with people once every week or once every 2 weeks, very early on in my acting career. And it was helpful, but the more people you've got, the more time it takes. And I think I'm all about efficiency. So if you want 3 or 4, but I try and keep it for low. So that's number 6. Number 7, I want you to pick a particular artist, just one. It can be from any decade or century. It could be a Greek writer. It could be Viggo Mortensen, it could be a filmmaker, it could be a sculptor, it could be any kind of artist you want, and maybe even it's like someone who crosses science and art, and any, as I said, this could still be alive or not. And I want you to spend at least 1 week on them and really see their work. Try and watch their very first, or read their very first work and their last. So if you were going to do, say, Miles Davis, listen to the first album you can get hold of. Obviously, maybe you might want to listen to Kind of Blue and Sketches of Spain as well, and then listen to some of his later work. See how their work has changed. And if there are interviews on record, if they've written interviews about themselves, about biographies, if other people have spoken about them. If it's a filmmaker, go and watch the first and last film and see what's changed. I remember reading about Peter Jackson, actually. Someone had done an authorised autobiography, and it was very, really interesting in the way he talked about having to constantly go from they kept producing King Kong and then Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings would fail, and then King Kong said they'd go back again. And this went on for a long time, years and years, until they finally got the one to get funding for, and off they went with Lord of the Rings, and then, of course, King Kong came. But it's so useful to see people's work. And I'd also literally look at what you can find about how they tackled life. What's their history? Did they have many children? Did they have none? A friend of mine did a fantastic show about Clara Schumann, because she was more famous than her husband, Schumann, and she also had to look after the kids. So there's so many fascinating characters in the world that we can find. You can read books about it. I remember I was in Ibiza one year. I like to read weighty tomes of books when I'm on the beach. It's a time when I read War of Peace and Anna Karenina. Then I did that on a beach. But in this case, I took a massive, huge book. It was written by the Rudolf Nureev's trust about his life and his training. Someone actually was on the beach next to me, and there was an older lady. She said, "Oh, I didn't know there was anyone with culture on the island." A bit harsh. But it was amazing to understand the hard work. And just one artist. And then if you found that really useful and you've got it all done in 1 week, pick someone else, like in a fortnight's time or the next month. Maybe you can pick, one a month and see everything they've ever made and listen to it and learn. It's just so invaluable, especially when you see what problems they had how they dealt with it. This stuff will completely inform you when your back is against the wall in difficult situations. You can always think, oh my God, at least I wasn't this or that or the other. So just go after it and learn and be absolutely inspired. And I would suggest also go after people that are in very different fields from you as well, or maybe different kind of types. So if you're a particular kind of musician, then go for a very different type, all that kind of stuff. Great. So that was number 7. So then we have The 8th habit of how to end overwhelm and find your joy again as a creative. One word for this: exercise. And now I know you probably don't want to hear this, but exercise is proven on every level to help your mood. We know that, right? But it also helps your brain grow. Students who exercised before a vocabulary lesson retained 25% more vocabulary afterwards. It gives you willpower. The amazingness of doing exercise that hurts, in a good way. There's a book called Spark by Dr. John Ratey, Ratey, that really talks, every chapter talks about whether you start weight training when you're 80, how it's brilliant for women during their period, everything. It talks about how it really will transform not just your body, but your mind, your headspace, everything. We all know that lockdown's been hard. I'm normally fiercely fit, and quite frankly, I normally easily walk 20,000 steps a day. And right here and now, I'm not going to the gym because I just don't feel it's very safe. I haven't even gone to my normal swimming in Hampstead open water ladies pond because I can't get in because they've changed the ruling and I can never get. But there's so many things we do. And dancing, you go club, we go drinking and you go dancing. It's exercise, right? And I dealt with some of that in last week's episode. So the hardest thing about exercise, as you know, is starting again. So again, you could even use your cheerleading person, your group, to get a friend, and maybe you can both text each other, I exercised, I did it today. And also there are so many home workouts now that you can't even say I haven't got any money. You might say I haven't got any space, but you can work out some kind of space and do something. It is, I know how hard it is. I keep saying I'm going to start exercising again myself again and again, but every time I do, and I'm back to training now, it just completely changes my day every day, and I sleep better. So I don't want to quote a sports company, but just do it daily. Ideally in the morning before you start, because it completely kicks off everything. But just get it done. My problem is if I don't do it in the morning and it's the end of a day, whether I've been working from home or actually working kind of out, is I find it really hard to do it at the end of the day. I have, but my excuse is, if I don't have time in the morning, I don't get it done. So that's my particular struggle. But as I said, just do it. Get it done. Daily, end of, non-negotiable. It will completely transform. The only two downsides of exercise are, one, you might injure yourself if you go and do something in an unsafe way. So I have a particularly ridiculous example of this. So in 2018, 2 years ago, I had the most amazing opportunity to put together a five-a-side football team. And I thought, okay, well, if I do that, I'm going to put an all-female football team together, particularly because I've actually never played football. I'm fit and I run, so I kind of handpicked some people. One of my friends, the fabulous Susan, she did say, is that the round ball or the oval ball? I thought, it doesn't matter. She plays tennis. I picked a friend of mine Evie, who's a film director, and I knew she ran marathons, so I was like, she's fit. And then I picked another friend of mine, a musician, and then I had to have a five-a-side plus a sub. And in the end, I did take two male friends. I had to defeminise my team just because one of them was so desperate because of who we were going to be playing against. So the people we were playing against, there were 96 of us, comprising of these five-a-side teams. And then all of us got to play with a football legend. And when I'm talking football legend, I'm talking Thierry Henry, Shay Given, Jimmy Bullard, the Fulham player who's just freaking hysterical. Jamie Redknapp was there, but had injured his arm. He should have been playing, so he was just coming around and chatting to us all. Alex Scott, who, of course, is the female footballer, who is now, obviously presenting on television. She's fabulous. But we turned up on this pitch, and literally there are men everywhere, apart from me and my three female friends and my two men in the team that I reluctantly brought with me. And we were like, oh my God. And we got to play. It was the funniest day. Even now I laugh with joy how ridiculous it is. I am super fit, so that kind of helps. And I am pretty coordinated. I've played the sport before. And somehow I thought I'm going to go in defence, not in goal, because obviously I don't want to mess my face up. The week later I was going off to Edinburgh Fringe to do 2 shows a day. So I really didn't want to have a smashed face with a ball. But it was pretty full on. And I actually did score a goal with an assist by Thierry Henry. That is, I only played football once, and I feel I'm going to leave it there. Thierry Henry did not look that impressed with having to play with us, but then he was getting harassed. But I mean, Jimmy Bullard, if he had to play against the female team, then he kept scoring goals against his own team, and they got very frustrated. We were dancing every time any of us even got near the goal. We got pretty good. We didn't win, obviously. The two people, the finalists, the two teams, I gather they just won the international five-a-side, so you can see the level. But it was a joy. But I will say that we should have all trained more, because although it's a five-a-side pitch, which turns out to be much smaller, and it was right next to Wembley as well, I was fine, but my thigh muscles, oh my goodness. And I was on stage a week later in Edinburgh, and I'm doing my Queen of the World show, and she's all sexy. She comes on it's a show about sexuality. She's dancing around, and I literally couldn't bend my knees for about a week because I'd so pulled a muscle in my thigh. My friend thinks she broke a toe, and someone else was limping for about 3 weeks. So the downside of exercise is you could really just go into it easy and gently. If you can start lifting weights, which is an amazing thing to do, then make sure you don't do stuff too heavy and get your form right. But yeah, just be wise about that and get advice, etc. But there's no real downside to exercise apart from that and the other, which is exercise is going to make you feel fierce, look fierce. So be prepared for people just to start going really flirting with you, no matter what your marital status is, because it'll make you feel initially better on the inside, and then the body's going to start going after that. So just be prepared just to get, because there's something about your skin. If you're training, when you meet someone, they're fit. It's not about their body fat level, it's about feeling fit in the skin, and that they could do a few rounds with you in the bedroom, right? Or pick you up. So there we are. That's exercise. That's number 8. Number 9. I have once in my life, I rarely actually write these podcasts down. I just riff them on bullet points because I'm all about improv, but I felt this was important enough to actually write a few bits. Give yourself the gift and respecting your dream by creating a routine. Now, as an artist, there's kind of 3 ways of being. You either have a huge amount of spare time and you don't have strict routines. And then if you have a day job or a job you do outside to get extra income, then often you end up sticking to that as the routine you work for. And I personally find great swaths of creative time is an absolute excuse to procrastinate. I know it's great to be able to muse and to ponder, but at some point you've got to get the work done. Now, Stephen Pressfield wrote an amazing book you may have read called The War of Art, where he literally likens the first couple of chapters about how, not first couple of chapters, first two-thirds of it, about war. As an artist, you need to treat it like a martial artist, because it's always so hard to kind of be making the work and keep on pushing through. He's an author. That you just have to be really disciplined. And he's right. He is completely right. And I am so the queen of setting a deadline, going, oh God, I've got a show to do. I once wrote an Edinburgh show on the way to Edinburgh. Now I just go, oh my goodness. Even now, I'm very good at improv because I've had to do it so much. But I'm so aware of me giving my creative inner self that routine. So if you don't have anything to do in the day because you're on lockdown, you haven't got work, at least sit down at 9 o'clock in the morning, get your desk and work on your creativity. Whatever your particular craft is, take it forward a step. I mean, I do get up earlier than that at the moment, but if you've got a day job and you have to be there at 9, or you're not commuting maybe now, suddenly you've got an hour back in the morning that you're not commuting. So get up early and get an hour's working on your art. If you're a musician, practice. I try not to sing before 10 actually, so I don't freak the neighbours out, but whatever it is, as long as you can do it quietly and compassionately to your neighbours, get going, get up and write the next 3 chapters of your novel or storyboard your flat. Get moving every day, and the routine will completely help. Because otherwise it's very easy to let money-bringing activities, especially at the moment when, everyone's just so scared of that dictates a routine. But actually giving yourself the gift of, I know every day I'm going to spend an hour first thing on the most important thing, which is my art, even if I'm going to fight with Photoshop or with me arguing with DJ equipment to get it all to do, what I need. There's a very cool book as well by Twyla Tharp, who's a New York choreographer, called The Creative Habit. Yeah, I'm sure it is, or This Creative Habit. No, it's The Creative. And she's up every morning at 6, gets a cab. I don't know why you remember these things, but she gets a cab every morning at 6 o'clock in New York to her gym, where she works out for an hour and a half before she starts her day. And of course, she's a dancer and a choreographer. So there you are. And no, so that was number 9 of the exercises to end overwhelm and to find creative joy, because you will find creative joy by just doing it every day. If you, at 6 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock when you get tired, you think, actually, I use my energy really well first thing in the morning. Now, my 10th and last one for this particular podcast, because as I said, I'm splitting them into 5 ideas each, because otherwise I'm going to overwhelm with you ideas, and I don't want that to do either, is I remember watching, I'm a big, huge fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, but to be honest, I'm a big fan of creatives who really dream and make really interesting things. And I've done cabaret now across the world for coming up to 20 years. So I have worked with and seen some amazing artists who create these alter egos, who create these characters. And it's not about gender and sexuality and all that kind of stuff. It's about they create these alter egos that completely bring out something very new. So that is exercise 10. I invite you to create your own alter ego. Now, apparently, I am a bio queen. That's short for biological queen. I mean, definitely my singing psychic character is definitely a character in and outside of myself, as is my Queen the fucking World character, who obviously her character, I'd like to point this out, not me, is an ex-stripper, and she's now a musician, and she talks about being educated about sexual politics. And it's an amazing show, and I love doing that show. I got Arts Council funding for it, first started in 2017, and I've had some incredible dialogues and done it in some really cool places. And neither Singing Psychic or Queen are ever going to die, because I will not let them, and I'm not going to let that work die, even if I'm not necessarily out gigging like 5 nights a week, like I kind of was pre-lockdown. So I'd like you to think about what your alter ego or your bio queen ego or your drag queen ego, whatever, drag king, actually. I saw a really amazing version of Joan of Arc written by a lady who was also a drag king, I believe that's how she referred to herself, and also performed by one. And it was solo theatre, so the actor was playing Joan of Arc, and all the characters, so the Dauphin, the friendly father, and I remember her sort of saying, trying to kind of think about having, it's an acting challenge as well, isn't it? I've played men as well, just thinking about having kind of junk in your trunk that's not your external trunk, but, actually a penis. It's quite interesting as a woman to kind of put some socks down there and have not for sexual pursuit, but for acting exercises and how you explore that part of yourself. So I'm going to encourage you to, if you had an alter ego, a drag queen ego, a bi queen ego, what would she look like? What would their name be? What would they dress like? What would they sound like? What would their story be? And what situations would you put them in? And what would their home lives look like and their sexual relationships be with? Are they single? Are they not? Have they got to think about da-da-da? Now, you can take this creation of this character all the way to an Instagram feed. You could put it in a novel, or you could just have your own notebook. But I think to have a dream about this external character that is not just a character you might write, but actually something that you'd be prepared. Well, you might not want to dress up as it, but you could really see it's an extension of some of you, but that's just a little bit more fierce. Obviously, the name is super important. I mean, there's brilliant drag queen names like Bag of Chips, obviously famously from RuPaul's Drag Race UK, the one in last year. But I mean, I've worked with I've got a particular fabulous friend of mine, Brooke, who's a bearded queen. And every time in Edinburgh, we have actually lip-synced against each other, and somehow I'm pretty good at it, but no. She takes me down. Last time she actually stole a pair of what they call things when you can't walk, crutches. I was doing super well. She stole a pair of crutches while we was, and completely took the crown off me. But anyway, I've not forgiven her for that. But she was brilliant. So have a think about that. And I personally can't give. People always say, "Oh, what's the name of Singing Psychic Queen?" I actually can't. For me, they're two. It's just a weird thing that. it's just too close to me for some reason, and I've tried, but it's like a weird divergence, because but I do refer to singing psychic as she and queen as she. I've done other characters, it's just those two have kind of stayed with me longer. And certainly Queen came from a little moment of improvisation when I was developing singing psychic, and I knew I could feel her in me, a bit like I spoke in episode 1 about Michelangelo bringing David out the statue. It just felt I had to bring her out, but have some fun with it. You might not, it's not about doing it with it, although you might want to draw her or paint her or sing about her or him, whoever they are, but have a go. And what are they particularly fierce at, and what is their point of view about the world, and what do they really, 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 really want, to quote the Spice Girls. Right, so there we are. So that was 5 more exercises to end overwhelm and to find your joy again as a creative. So there are another 2, so there's 20 in total, and they're all different. And hopefully you're going to use these and try them out and let me know how they go. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm on @MarishaT on Twitter, and also at the Singing Psychic, of course, on and @MarishaT on Instagram and Facebook, all the normal places, and also the Love Your Creativity. So you can find me most places. If you want to book me to work with you as an actor, then that's the case of contacting my agent. But equally, if you want to book, the customised brand experience of the Singing Psychic game show, oh my God, I can't wait to do it again. I think about my gigs in Australia last year, and all I remember is people laughing so hard on my stage, I just hardly could breathe. And I just think, oh, the joy of that, I'm missing that so much. But if I'm helping you get through difficult times and just say one exercise that helps you, that really makes me happy, seriously. And equally, obviously, I talk, and it turns out I now lecture about creativity. So how did that happen? So have a great week. Try one out. Let me know. I'll be back next week with the next lot of 5 yet more ways to find a way to open your heart and get creative and have some fun, no matter what is going on in this crazy world around us. So I have actually created a toolkit. So all of the 20 exercises in one place with some more detailed questions to ask yourself on each one. So if you would like to have that, I'd like to say sexy PDF, but I'm not sure a PDF can be sexy. But if you would indeed like a copy of that, and I'm going to let it be available for free, certainly for the next 2 months, then either email me at info@loveyourcreativity.com, or equally, if you go to my loveyourcreativity.com website, which I've got lots of old, there's a pop-up on there, and if you want to put your details in the pop-up, so just go to loveyourcreativity.com and pop your details in the pop-up, and you'll get it sent through. Any issues, just tweet me or Facebook me, say I haven't got it. So otherwise just email me at info@loveyourcreativity.com with the word toolkit in the top, and I will then get that sent over to you via email. Be well, be safe, be happy. Bye.
Driving with the roof down, sitting in cafes with my girlfriends. Forget New York, Paris and Rome. I even love London.